Hey, so this is the first episode of the Cosmic Relief podcast, and today we're joined by a very special guest, Mystiverse.
Hello.
Yeah, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
You're saving our channel.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about some very interesting stuff, like sort of the outcome of humanity, in where we're going to go, what's going to happen with the species, and I suppose just the end goal, really, or what's going to happen after Earth, I suppose, as well.
Well, those are some very big talking points. Hopefully we can weigh in something interesting.
Yeah, fingers
So
crossed.
something that interests me about human society is good and evil, because technically they're like human constructs, right? But then everything's a human construct, you know, wiping my ass after I shit is a human construct. So
I mean, the actual wiping is not really a construct, but I think the whole why do we wipe?
because why not?
Sorry, that's a bit of a weird question, but it is.
But
animals don't.
What I meant was that we all have these kind of ethical values, and I think, in my opinion, good and bad is kind of on how much pain and suffering you're inflicting.
But then, I suppose if you're talking about pleasure and pain as the source of our kind of moral codes, then if we can consider animals having some sort of pain and pleasure as well, then wouldn't ethics be more objective? It wouldn't be such a social construct if it was not unique to humans per se.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. But on top of that, there are things like drugs which humans find pleasurable, which are, illegal. Alcohol isn't, for whatever reason, probably because it's just been around for so long, but a lot of it is illegal because it can be harmful, even though it has a seemingly positive effect.
But then, there are again some animals that use drugs. Like I was reading the other day, I think it was panthers or something, some kind of hunting animal like that, and they use these. They eat these specific type of plant that gives them sort of a high, and it like hones their senses, and they use it before they hunt to like give themselves a bit of an edge.
Cats do that as well with catnip.
Catnip,
I swear,
yeah.
Ethan, you told me that dolphins, they get high off.
Oh yeah, no,
like
dolphins.
Pufferfish.
Yeah, they get high off of pufferfish, but that's just because dolphins are. Well, they're a weird case because they're nearly as smart as humans. They've actually got more neurons than humans. I remember reading, which I found really weird. I think it's mainly down to like echolocation and stuff as well, though, because of course humans don't have that. But they're a very intelligent species, and I feel like potentially intelligence is directly linked with being more experimental, which could explain why we see drug use in more intelligent animals.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an alcoholic because I'm super smart.
No, well,
You can keep telling yourself that.
yeah, you can keep
Hell
saying
yeah.
that if it helps. But yeah, I think dolphins. Yeah, no, they're weird creatures. There's a lot of similarities between humanity. They actually have names, which I find weird. They like give themselves names, which is determined by a variety of. I can't remember what it is. I'm pretty sure it's just clicks and squeaks. But
They
it's
have
just-
language as well, so we can
well,
actually share
yeah.
the world with dolphins if we
We don't
find
know
out
their
how to crack
language
their
yet, though.
language.
We haven't quite got that far yet. It would be very interesting to hear what a dolphin has to talk about. I'm not sure if we'd ever get to that stage. And then it's the whole question of how different is their morality from ours, because I feel like being able to talk to a completely different species, you'd definitely get some view of what is more universally morally acceptable. If you
I
can
reckon
talk to...
the next guest you should have on the podcast is a dolphin. You can ask them all these questions.
Yeah, that'd be great. I feel like it would be difficult to understand, but it would definitely be something to have a crack at.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
What are your views, Mr. Mystiverse, on like ethics and laws in the world? Like, obviously not politics.
It's quite a
but-
broad question.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try and give some sort of answer. I've been very tossed up on my opinion because when I sort of started learning philosophy, of course here in the UK we've got the strong analytic tradition and everything's logic and it's black and white answers and you can prove it with argumentative structures and that, and of course we've got that long tradition. We've got David Hume, John Locke, Bishop Berkeley, Bertrand Russell, all them lot, they do all that sort of work. And I was kind of raised in this tradition, knowing that there were black and white answers. And then after coming to university and kind of reading just out of my own self-interest and watching all these YouTube videos about the continental side of philosophy, it's not so black and white. There are lots of grey areas, and while I can sympathise with like social constructivism to a degree, it does explain quite a lot. Me personally,
sorry.
Sorry, go on.
I was just about to say, I think it's healthy to be skeptic sometimes.
Oh, definitely. You can't, to be a thing in the world, I think skepticism's sort of critical.
Yeah. Lots of people just spend their whole lives sort of just drifting through it. And that's not to like say that that's a bad thing, but I do find that talking about a lot of this stuff seems to make some people just uncomfortable. Like, it's because of the fact that I think it's just so ingrained in us from the second that we're just here, that it's immediately something that no one really wants to talk about unless they're prepared to, get pretty intense about it. So
well, that's why one of my favourite quotes is a Socrates quote: "The unexamined life is not worth living." And I think that resonates a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but life is... It's well, the alternative is nothing. So I feel as an entity that's just here, I should at least... Because I don't think there's an answer to why I'm here. I just think there's, everyone's always looking for the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, which is 42, of course. But the point is, I think it's just sort of... It's... Even if there is no direct answer, it's good to question as much about the universe as possible while we are here for the short amount of time that we are.
Definitely. I don't really believe in any sort of higher power controlling anything. I'm not saying there isn't something like that, but I think everything is very just random. It's all just things happening. So that's kind of, if you want to look on the more positive side, there's definitely more of a beauty in the world, how we're here, and it's not a higher power, then it's nice that we can even just be having this conversation now, just by pure luck, chance.
Yeah, if you think of all the kind of trillions and trillions of things that have had to happen in the specific way that they did in order for us to just be having this conversation now, just thinking about stuff and chatting about the way the universe is, it's insane, really.
It's quite impressive. It's also the fact that, like, we have no idea if there is anything else out there. So this could be it. Like, I doubt that this is it, but so far we haven't met anything else on Earth that can have the same level of conversation as us. So, and we don't even know if there's anything else out there, is my point. Yeah. So if we were to go out there and find something, it might not even be on the same level of us. It might be too high, it might be too low. It could be anything, and really I think the fact that we are here and now and we can discuss things, like, sure, there's no overall point to it, but it's just, beautiful for the moment that it's here, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I try and do my best to live that, because it is easier to just accept everything as it is and not really think about it too much, but when you get into actually being skeptical and actually examining the nature of your world and that, and it is difficult and it's hard and it's sometimes quite tough to confront it, but I think you get all the benefits out of it, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of people. I'm trying to remember a quote. God, I'm bad with these. Sorry. It was someone said something along the lines of, was it? I'd like to. I think it was Plato. He said that the philosopher, their job is to. Because I'm trying to bring it around to the cave argument with the whole. Do you know Plato's cave argument with the three people, the wall, and I'm just thinking the philosopher's job is to try and explain it to the world, to not people who don't want to listen, but explain it in a way that it is listenable. Because otherwise people will just reject stuff which is too big a concept or too difficult to deal with. So you gotta either give it to people in little bits if they don't want to hear it, or you've got to provide it in a way which doesn't contradict any of the stuff which they know about the world already.
Yeah, I mean that was Plato's basic argument with the allegory of the cave, was that the first people that kind of went out of the cave, they're used to, you know, living there, being chained up, only seeing shadows, not knowing what the true nature of the world is. Yeah, and he says you come out of the cave and, you know, it burns your eyes and it hurts because you've never seen anything like that before, and it's like a horrible journey to get out of the cave, and you come out and you've got bruises and cuts all over you and everything from the walk up. But he says that once you're there, you don't want to go back, because now you've seen what the true nature of the world is, and your job then is to help other people come and see the light as well.
Yeah, but then of course... Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I suppose that relates to the ignorance is bliss argument. I mean, we could be in ignorance right now. There could be a whole universe out there of like different things, higher powers, anything, but we're not aware of it. Maybe because we can't really contemplate it, or maybe just because we haven't found it yet.
Yeah, no. Oh, no, that actually reminds me. There's a thing which I've always thought about, which is... So, like, an ant, or, like, say, just an animal which has, like, a smaller brain capacity. No, like, if you could speak their language, if you could, if they could understand you perfectly, and you explain to them about the nature of being, they wouldn't be able to understand it, because they are... the actual machinery that they're made out of isn't accustomed to that sort of interaction. So... One thing which I think that people don't consider is the fact that we are very much restricted by how we are. So there might be so much more out there that we just can't even consider because of the way that we're put together.
Oh yeah, definitely, because a big part of perception, just being able to perceive the world in the first place, is how you're built, what your biological hardware is. And if we were a different way, then the likelihood is we'd perceive the world totally differently, and we'd have totally different ideas about the mind and philosophy and everything else. But it's because we are the way we are that we perceive things the way we do. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like stuff with debates about there being higher beings. Like you have the problem where, because if God is all loving and all knowing and all powerful, and there's suffering in the world, then how can he be, you know, considered to be all loving? And that's the argument. Sorry, go on. I can't remember the name of it. Sorry.
I believe it's called the I forgot, but it's called the triangle, and it's basically there's pain and suffering. God is all loving. God is all powerful, and because there's pain and suffering in the world, God can either be all loving or all powerful, but he can't be both.
I think that's the Utopia dilemma.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I believe that's the name of it.
I guess my point is, because we're very much viewing this from the perspective of just being people. Like, I'm not a believer in like any higher powers or anything. I'm not a massive... Well, I'm pretty much... No, I just say I'm an atheist. But I do think that with some of these questions, you at least have to consider that if there was something that was that much greater, that it would have completely different and like completely different motives that we would have no idea about, so it might not even be comprehensible to us at the state that we currently are in.
Exactly. That kind of leans into a position quite well that I like, called skeptical theism. And I can't remember exactly the name of the philosopher. It was a 20th century philosopher, William someone, I'm pretty sure,
right,
who was actually taught by one of my lecturers at university, fun fact.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And he basically says that he was responding to the problem of evil, and which sort of ties into the Utopia dilemma. You know, if evil exists, God can neither be all powerful or all good. And he gives the example of this fawn, which is a baby deer, isn't it? A fawn,
I think.
That's not the important bit. Anyway,
yeah.
This fawn is this forest is struck by lightning, and there's a massive forest fire, and this fawn is separated from its mother, and it kind of burns alive and slowly dies over days as it starves to death. Wonderful little thought experiment. And he says, well, this surely is an example of pointless evil. How could a good God allow that? And his point of view, I think he's coming from an atheistic point of view, I think, and he says that, well, how are we to know that if God were to prevent that from happening, that some greater evil wouldn't have happened. We only have a limited amount of epistemic access. We can only be knowledgeable about certain things. If God is infinitely knowledgeable, then who are we to say that God doesn't have, a plan, for the lack of a better word? He's got leagues and leagues more knowledge than we could ever hope to have. And so, because there's arguments on both sides, this is where the skeptical theism comes in. There are arguments for atheism and arguments for theism, but we don't, because of our epistemic limitations, we don't have enough knowledge either way. So we can't really, if someone's an atheist, that's fine, but the atheist has to take into account that there are strong arguments for theism as well.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I'm more. I like to live my life. I guess I just don't believe in the sort of commonly accepted view of God as being this sort of entity that is all powerful, all knowing. He knows when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, so be good for goodness sake. It just feels more like if there is an entity that created the entire universe, I feel like he wouldn't be so much of a control mechanism, or at least I feel like God, in the way that he is today presented by like modern day views, is more of a. It seems more like a way of controlling people. Like, while I do agree, like there could of course be something out there, I don't think it would be similar to the way that humans have depicted it, because again we're very simple creatures.
Yeah, I can't believe in God in the way humans describe it, because I believe there's like 3,000 different gods, whether that be like Zeus or Brahman, and I don't believe in a God the way like the Bible describes it. But I think it's ridiculous to have full certainty over these things, because I mean there could be aliens, there could be gods, we don't actually know, it's impossible to know.
Yeah, it's less about, for me, not believing in a god, and more about I feel like I need more evidence. Like if I had enough evidence to prove that God was real, then just like that I'd start believing in him. But I think it's the whole belief which I find difficult, because surely if there is something all powerful, it'd leave more of an impact than just saying believe in me or you're going to hell.
That kind of comes back to perception then, doesn't it? Because we can't perceive God, so that's why we have doubt.
Well, exactly, yeah. But the argument of belief, you can't really counter it, because it's just belief. It's
faith. And
anything
faith,
that you give in rebuttal is just...
The description of it is literally just like blind trust, pretty much.
Yeah.
But then that's the point of faith, isn't it? I think my biggest problem with it is the kind of personal aspect that Christianity especially insists on, like God has a personal relationship with you. I see that as, well, I don't want to say unlikely, because who am I to say how unlikely it is if God does exist? But this is why I tend to favour deist arguments, like more of a, not necessarily infinitely powerful, but certainly very powerful, very knowledgeable, an impersonal God that created the universe and that was it.
Yeah,
I
that
find
would definitely explain a lot.
Yeah, and
they might have just made it then bailed.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what the deist arguments say, and I think they're quite believable, really.
It's a better argument, I'd say, because or polytheistic arguments as well, because again, if there were multiple supreme beings, that could explain unbalance. If they're all completely powerful, it would explain why the world is just all over the place, especially in 2020. So I'd say polytheism works, or a god that isn't completely all powerful works. And then there's also the argument of complexity from nothing, because really all that we are, if you look at it, is cells as a whole are very simple things which combine to create a person, and then the cells are made out of simple particles which combine to make cells. And really, if you look at the planet as just a thing, it could just be viewed as one organism, because it's just so many complex interactions that it's sort of its own thing. So if
it's just sort of water and dirt with life on it, pretty much.
Or you could view it, I guess, as like just a ball of life, because you could say that there is life on Earth, or you could say that Earth is alive. And if you look at the whole universe like that, and it's true that complexity just comes from innately just dead matter, then that could be another way that a supreme being could exist. It could literally be the embodiment of the universe. And I'm not saying that I believe this, but I do notice that complexity does tend to come out of otherwise just dead matter. I mean, the fact that we can even have this conversation is proof of that. But the further that you zoom out, the more it becomes clear that everything is just sort of working together. The universe is just a giant machine, if you really think about it.
It's a cycle, pretty much. Like, the Earth is a cycle. Like, even all life, whether it be plants, us, we're born, then we have kids, then we die, pretty much, and then they replace us and do the exact same thing. And that's kind of the same with the universe. I mean, I've heard this theory where we could just be in a constant cycle of, well, you know, there's the Big Bang, then the universe is about, it expands, then the Big Rip happens, then that causes the Big Bang again. So I've heard that we're just in a constant cycle.
Oh, like the Futurama episode.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, no, they did it in a future. Really? Wow. No, it's a great show.
I've seen bits of it.
They actually came up with like a whole equation for that show for showing how a mind could be swapped between bodies. Well, it wasn't like actually about how the mind was swapped between bodies, but about, I can't remember what the theorem was called. But yeah, no, it's a really good show. It's got lots of stuff that's, you know, it's very much a show for people. Like, tons of jokes go over my head because it's made by people who are definitely more intelligent than me, and it's just, yeah, it's a good show. I'd watch it. It's got, you know, tons of people work on it. This isn't meant to be an advertisement for Futurama. I don't know how it's got onto this.
No.
It is a good show though. So yeah, Joel, I'd recommend that you watch that at some point if you want. It's just whatever. But yeah, there was one episode where they show that the universe is just a looping thing. I'm not too sure about that. I'm not, because I suppose
there's dead matter though, isn't there?
Well,
like,
yeah, but
energy.
But how would that fall back into exactly the way that it was when the universe started? Like, could it be an endless loop, or is it just? Because I think that the Big Rip might not even happen. It could just be heat death, which is a very dark way of looking at it. But heat death is just. It makes sense. If you push something, it will roll, and then eventually it'll stop rolling, and very much everything in the universe is still rolling from the Big Bang, and so eventually it will just stop rolling once all the energy is gone, which I think makes sense. The Big Rip sort of suggests that there's enough energy from the Big Bang and the universe will tear apart, and then somehow all of the contents within will create another universe, but like, energy can't be created or destroyed, but it's transferred, and eventually it'll reach a base state. So I suppose the Big Rip suggests more that the universe will keep expanding until it collapses instead of just silently going out, which, I don't know, I'm not sure which one I prefer, but I definitely think the more plausible one would be heat death.
I think we don't know enough about dark matter and dark energy yet to say which one's going to happen for sure. Because it's ultimately it comes down to a race between gravity and dark energy and which one's going to win. Because if gravity,
it could be Timberlands.
It could be Timberlands, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, dark matter's an interesting one. We really don't know much about that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Dark matter, isn't it the idea, like, that's what's separating all of the galaxies in the universe, potentially, or making gravity not as strong as it's meant to be?
Sort of. It's sort of like, it's something like, what is it, 70 or between 70 and 80% of the universe is made of this dark matter or dark energy, one of the two. I can't remember.
I think it's dark matter that like a large percentage of the universe is made out of. Yeah,
so because it's like, because there's so much of it in the universe, it's kind of weakening, has the effect of weakening gravity. So if it can weaken gravity to a point where dark energy becomes stronger than gravity, then the universe will keep expanding, and then that will result in a big rip. So it all depends on whether this dark energy / dark matter can overpower gravity or not.
It's the whole thing of, like, what it actually is, because it's something which hasn't been studied. We don't even really know if it's a thing or not. It's just it could just be a phenomenon that we don't understand quite yet. But the whole thing is, there is just really a lot about the world, the way the universe works, how it came to be. Just there's tons of it. You can debate about it like forever, but there's so much that we just don't know yet, and there's so much that we probably won't ever know, which I think is.
I think it is just down to like endless complexity. Because what's always fascinated me, you see those videos of like fractals.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You sort of zoom in and it gets the same pattern, and you can zoom in forever.
Yeah.
And there was this amazing video I watched. It was something about, there was this like fundamental mathematical constant that you could represent using this fractal. I think Veritasium did a video on it, and you can sort of zoom into it, and you get to the same point, and you can zoom in forever. And it was sort of these little kind of black holes in the mathematics of the universe, something mental like that. And
Wow.
It was like, clearly, you know, from the existence of like pi and irrational numbers and that, there are things that are infinitely complex about the universe. And I think as long as those things can be proven to exist, that we'll never get to the bottom of it. I think there's always going to be far more stuff out there than we don't know than what we do.
It's the whole thing that because for ages, like the for ages the plum pudding model of the atom was like, it was accepted as being the only thing that was there, and it was accepted as just being what an atom looked like. And now, of course, I think we've gone through two different models. One where it's sort of like the nuclear symbol, like the atomic symbol of an atom. Sorry, no, not atomic. Well, like the sort of nucleus with the electrons going around it, and then we've got another one which is sort of like this phasing thing. And it's just the fact that we, like, even the stuff that we have today, so much of it in the near future is going to become redundant, because even some stuff which my parents learned in, like, when they were in school or college or whatever, that's now, you know, been disproven or changed. And it's just the fact that you can hold on to stuff, but it just keeps on changing as we get more information on it, which, because a lot of the we forget a lot of the time that all of the stuff that we have are, they're just models or stuff that we've sort of gathered from looking at things, but we can't really, it's just a lot of guesswork, a lot of it, which I think is quite insane.
Yeah, it is insane the rate that stuff goes out of date. Our theories become incorrect. But I think like you said, it's all models of the universe. We come up with a picture, and it maps on sort of like well enough that we can use it. And then as soon as we learn more about the universe, it just throws out our picture completely. So we're like, oh, we'll have to come up with a new picture, and we're just constantly getting better and better, like higher and higher quality graphics, you know, on a video game. Yeah. It's just increments. And
every single time. Yeah, I think actually the video game thing is a great way of describing it, because every single time a new console or a new game comes out, you always go, these graphics are perfect, there's no way that you can top them. And then you get another bit and it's suddenly better.
Higher frame per second or higher HD thing. So I suppose that could be the same with knowledge we have about the universe. So it could just be a constantly expanding thing, because maybe we'll never get to the bottom of it. Maybe it'll always be like kind of just going up and up and up.
Yeah. Because the whole tip of the iceberg argument that all of the knowledge that we have at the moment is comparable to just being the tip of the iceberg, and the stuff that we don't know is the huge mass of it that's under the water.
Yeah.
And I do think that's very true. But of course, being that we're, I guess, arrogant as a species, we still don't really, well, we don't know what we don't know, but a lot of people are content to not know what they don't know.
Yeah, well, we can relate that back to what we were saying earlier. You know, it's like you got the massive iceberg underneath the sea, and you can see that as scary, or you can see that as like an opportunity, and that's like critical to people that want to either confront their reality or sort of shun away from it. And that's sort of what science and philosophy is all about.
Yeah, completely. Because in the early days of man, well, people had no idea what was going on, so they had to, well, sort of just by observing the world, come to their own conclusions about what was going on. So they came up with reasons for why the sky is there, why the ground is there, what's going on with just everything around us. And of course, science, as it stands today, or I guess as it's always stood, and philosophy is just sort of saying, so we think we know what's going on, let's throw everything out and then see just completely objectively from a distance what's actually going on without taking into account anything else. And I think that's very much the goal of philosophy, to find the ultimate answer to it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm quite interested in your guys' views on, ethically, space exploration, like human space exploration, going into the universe, whether it be Moon or Mars. What do you guys think about that?
Ooh. Yeah, that's quite a deep topic, definitely. Mars, well, Elon Musk is definitely trying to get us there right now. Not sure if he will succeed, but it seems to be going well. I think it's good to have all your eggs in more than one basket, you know, because Earth, let's be honest, it's shaky as hell. Not like the ecosystem would recover it, like after everything that we've done to it, but I think that if we're not careful, we're going to end up being on our way out. So having more than one planet is definitely a way to prevent that.
A thing I've heard is how humans, we've got enough issues on Earth, let alone focusing on space, which I kind of agree with in a way. Like we've barely sorted things out here on Earth, like if we just talk politically, socially, like not even just the ecosystem. So maybe going to space, that could either be a massive positive. I think you talked about, Ethan, in one of your videos, Pluton communism, how it could be better perhaps politically. But the problem is with going into space ethically is, what if we fuck up space like we fuck up Earth?
Well, space is big, which
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of hedging on the side of Joel there. Like, there's a lot of problems on Earth, and
I mean, yeah, definitely, it's a whole different amount of problems in space. But I think it's definitely something that we should at least consider.
oh yeah, I think we should. It's definitely needs consideration before we go and make a stupid decision. But I would say for me, like, space exploration is definitely important, if nothing else, for updating our theories about the universe and everything, and gaining more knowledge in that. But I think we should focus on sorting out our problems here before we spread them out more. You know,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's sort of a thing. I can't think of what's related to, but if we have all these problems here on Earth, then we go in space. These problems aren't going to go away. They're literally just going to get bigger.
Well, I suppose, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of the problems are linked with the fact that we are just on a single planet. Like, we have problems with resources and stuff because it's very difficult to... Well, it's not difficult to distribute resources, and I think that's definitely more of the fact that we've separated into, like, distinct regions all over the planet. But I think space is... It's big, it's got stuff in it, and, you know, humanity is... Well, we're going to start running out of stuff, so I think we got
It's a shame, though, really, because kind of we're a bit unlucky because our solar system, so our closest planets, aren't really habitable like Earth, like Mars.
Well, there's
Neptune,
Venus,
whatever.
which is a bit of a hellscape. But if we somehow manage to get rid of all the CO2, it would be fine, I think. Well, that and all the water vapor, but you know.
To be fair, though, what I do have a lot of hope for is something Kurzgesagt did a video on recently, which is asteroid mining.
I saw that in my recommended. I haven't actually seen that video yet.
I think that before we start trying to settle on other planets, I think that's something we should be looking into quite a bit.
Yeah,
because there's a tremendous amount of resources to be had, and like money, just in general, from asteroid mining.
There was
it definitely helped the
asteroid.
economy.
Oh yeah, there was a platinum asteroid that passed by Earth. I can't remember when it was. I think it must have been like 2017 or something. I'm probably completely wrong with the date. But Stephen Hawking was actually going to launch something up to try and mine a bit of the asteroid, if I remember correctly.
What was it?
Yeah, I'm probably getting this completely wrong. But there was definitely a platinum asteroid that passed over Earth, and the fact of the matter is, if we were able to catch that, it would have just completely crashed, I suppose, the platinum market on Earth. Platinum would have just become way less expensive.
I do agree that space exploration is important because, like we were talking earlier about there being a higher power or anything, if we found something, whether it be aliens, and they are more intelligent than us, they could open a door to us to a whole new world of knowledge and really, like, I guess, maximise human potential.
But then that's just it's implying that we would have something to offer the aliens, because I think that life is very much it has to be self-serving. That's how it works, and everywhere that humans have been, we've sort of harmed even members of our own species. We've used other members of other species as cattle. So I think if there was an alien race, first off, I feel like unless we have something to offer it, it wouldn't really even give us the time of day.
Yeah,
and
to
if
be
it
fair,
did,
I don't think there's been like any genuine acts of kindness between nations on this country, even like, you know, to third world countries, let alone some massively advanced alien species just giving us technology because they felt like it.
There's good and bad on Earth, and there's a lot more bad, I suppose, if you look at it. Like, there's gang rapists of dolphins.
Oh yeah,
but
dolphins.
There's
are
not
evil.
gang rapists of dolphins. There's like regular nice dolphins. Maybe aliens would. I think Ethan, you've mentioned this before. Maybe aliens would view Earth like that. They'd just see us for all the negative. And I think it was Exerbia who mentioned something about how aliens might know about us, but might just not even want anything to do with us. We could just be like savages to them.
Yeah.
Almost how we treat, tribes, uncontacted tribes in like the Amazon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they're like sufficiently advanced enough, then it would be. I feel like it could even be to a lesser extent than that, like how we view just random animals that we stumble across. There's no attempt made to try and communicate with, say, a squirrel. If you saw a squirrel, you wouldn't attempt to teach it how to properly store nuts for the winter, or to give it a massive supply. It just wouldn't understand, and so you just wouldn't even bother. So if there's something which is literally like so advanced from us that we wouldn't even understand what its goals are, I feel like it would just leave us alone until we're a bit better at living.
But I think this is where science fiction particularly comes in really handy, because we can philosophize and we can talk about it and think like that. But I think science fiction is the only medium where you have like a proper exploration of these themes and what could happen and what do we want to happen. It's the only like kind of sci-fi stories about aliens invading Earth and that they do get us to think about the issues. Well, what would we do? What would we want to happen?
Yeah,
and I think science fiction can be really important for that.
It's also there's the there is the threat, however, of thinking that aliens in science fiction are very much us, because it's sort of a lot of it is projecting. We know that life is inherently selfish, but we don't know if it is always cruel. So that, for instance, like aliens could get something out of us, or they might not, but there's nothing to suggest that they are going to strip our planet for resources or kill everyone or do anything if they do show up. I feel like it's sort of a reflection of our own history in a way, because there's no knowing what they're like.
It depends how intelligent they are, because they could, I mean, I'm not vegan, but they could just treat us like how we treat cattle or chickens or pigs, literally just use us like slaves or something, or for, like you said, our resources. So it kind of depends how kind they are.
Yeah, but it's more the fact that you can just get resources from anywhere. Like, there'd be no point on even, because you could view Earth as this beautiful ball. You could view Earth as this beautiful ball of life, or if you're a sufficiently advanced alien species, you could just view Earth as just like a planet like any other, except this planet is infected with life, so you don't want to land there. Which could be another thing.
Actually, turning the tables, what if we found a alien species that was less advanced and less intelligent than us?
Yeah, I'd like to think that we'd be nice to them, but there isn't a good track record of that in history.
No.
We could be the aliens we're talking about, how we give them technology, or we could just enslave them like the British used to.
Yeah.
Well, that is precisely one of the points that the War of the Worlds was supposed to raise. It was a sort of commentary on British colonialism. And we are the aliens in that situation. Yeah, it's like, how would we feel?
Which not our fault. It's the ancestors.
Yeah, true. That's another thing with the whole. Oh no, I'm not going into that. But it's the fact that. Yeah, it's if you think about it, all that anyone is we're just randomly assembled carbon atoms and water molecules just put together by instructions that were made by our parents and the parents before them and the parents before them, and yet everyone has a direct tie-in with their history because of the fact that you are raised by the people who made the instructions generally. And that's a very weird thing to think about, because there's tons of history attached to the fact that we are, like, who we're descended from, but at the same time we can't
God could
choose.
be a deadbeat dad.
Well, I mean,
God could have just made us, then like left and been like,
you could
I'm
view him
going
like
to-
that, I suppose. If you're looking at the state of the world now and you believe that he is all powerful, that's probably quite an accurate assumption. You could say that he has just sort of abandoned us, I suppose. I mean, I can't really talk about this. I'm talking about it from the viewpoint of somebody who is theistic, because I'm not sure if I can really speak on the matter in that regard. I think that if there was a god looking at the world now, it would be very difficult to actually view him as like an all-loving entity. But then again, I can't really speak on behalf of an all-powerful being. It's very difficult to contextualise what's going on.
If we consider human-inflicted genocides throughout history, we're kind of a problem child.
I suppose, but it's less of a beating up siblings and more of, if you're viewing all of humanity as the child, then it would be sort of like internalized anger, I suppose, instead of like picking on a sibling or someone.
So
Yeah.
with human tribal instincts and social cultures, that's something I'm quite interested in. So not so much about God, but with humans, I've noticed we are kind of still all in tribes if we're talking about human nature.
Yeah, definitely. It's people tend to group up. Like, you have stuff like football, and everyone has a team that they support. Everyone then has a team which they dislike, and it's just the sort of group instinct, I suppose. Just
Yeah,
working
people
together.
take it further than that with like firms and violence. It's wanting to belong, wanting to be able to fit in. We even see it with YouTube. We're in the philosophy genre.
Yeah.
Then you'll get vloggers
Yeah.
and gamers.
Yeah, people like to belong to a certain... They like to, associate themselves with something bigger than themselves, but something that they can control. We group ourselves naturally into families and towns and countries. This is why you
There's
get really
nations,
nationalistic.
races, religions.
Yeah.
There's all of the things that... Because a lot of people... We like to group ourselves into groups, and also I find people also tend to like to distinguish themselves from other groups. Like, people like to think that the group that they're in is better. So if you say like a TV show or something, and you like a specific character and another group of people likes another character, then there would be a conflict there. And I know that's a bit of a weird example to use, but I think it's just the natural conflict that comes out of disagreements and the reason why groups are formed in the first place.
Yeah, like everyone wants to be in the right. We're all like the hero of our own story.
Yeah.
So the problem is with the tribal instincts and the social kind of groups we have, it is quite dangerous. And by dangerous, we can literally mean like genocides, like whether we look at Nazis or anything.
And then it's the question
wanting
of
to belong to something
yeah.
can be quite negative.
But like, there's also the question of, would that then extend into space travel? Like, because going to different planets and stuff, like, there would be physiological changes to people, there would be cultural changes to people, and what you don't want is a series of planets which are in conflict with each other because they view themselves as different groups.
Oh god,
And
we've got to
yeah,
worry
basically
about space Nazis now.
Yeah, exactly, that's the issue. You don't want
It
there
could
to
happen
be...
though, because
yeah.
we've seen it with the British. So our colonies, like America or Ireland, they've wanted independence and they've fought for it. So that could be exactly what happens.
Independence
we
of
go to a planet,
Mars.
colonise it, Macca's revolution.
Mackie.
But I mean, not to get like
favourite dwarf
too
planet.
political, but I think this is sort of representative of what happened with like Brexit. So you've got
Yeah.
all the people in Europe controlling the laws, and the common people in Britain, us lot, we're so far down from the people making the decisions at the top that we're just not related to them at all. We can't kind of identify with anything going on up there because we're so far down here. And so it was sort of needed to have a split so we can become British as opposed to European Union, because the the group that we were trying to belong to was too big. And I think that this could be what happens if we say we colonize Mars. There could be another Brexit situation where people, the human race now is too big. We want Earth and we want Mars, and there'll be a separation there. And over time, it'll kind of extenuate and
it could even
itself.
fall into the race thing, because our race kind of matters on your climate. Like, I won't get too racy or anything, but Africans, they have some of their genetic features because of their environment. Same with Europeans, Asians, any race. So
on Mars, the lowered amount of gravity would lead to people being more long and spindly.
They'd evolve differently. Well, they'd just evolve, like evolution.
They'd adapt. It's what would happen.
And then there might be a whole thing, are we even like human anymore? Because there'd be such vast differences between all of us. That wouldn't help. Let's just put it like that.
Because then it's the whole thing of, if you have humans colonizing every single planet in the universe, at what point do they stop being humans colonizing every single planet in the universe? Because eventually they would just break off into completely different subsets and completely different species, because you'd have humans adapted to lower gravity planets, humans adapted to higher gravity planets, and if you left it for long enough, then it would just be alien at that point.
Yeah.
And I think, that's
we sort of
big
become
thing.
our own idea of what aliens are.
Which is, again, I think that's what the idea of aliens is today, really. It's sort of what we might become, at least in pop culture. It's the aliens that invade humans and are emotionless and take resources and kill people without caring. I feel like that's a massive fear for modern day man. A lot of people are afraid of not just that happening, but also becoming that. It's more of like a warning of what could happen if we're not careful.
With human nature, I think there'll always be sort of two different groups. There'll always be utopia and dystopia, and we are always heading towards utopia. Every decision we make, it's heading towards utopia, but at the moment, with our decisions and our disagreements, we're heading towards dystopia.
Well, no, I don't know about that. Dystopia.
What do you mean by utopia?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very difficult concept to think about.
Well, the way I think of utopia and dystopia is, utopia, we all want to live in a better world, and dystopia isn't a great world.
But then
and
it's the whole thing of it's just the whole thing of which world. Like, different people have different views of the perfect world, and I think that's very important to consider, because one person's utopia is another person's dystopia. Heaven could be hell depending on your viewpoint and how you want the world to be.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why we have disagreements. Like, Nazis would have viewed their utopia as way different to, the Nazis' view of utopia was our view of dystopia. So it's one of those things we kind of have to agree as humans on what sort of directions we go, all have common goals, and until we do that, I don't think we're really ready for space travel and exploration, like colonizing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to unify as a species, and I think that's a long time coming. I'm not going to lie. I don't think that's happening for a long time.
A very long time, sadly. But
I get where you both are coming from in that regard, but also if you think about where we're heading, I feel like we need to get to space regardless of issues pretty soon, because we're not handling the world very well. In the state that it is, the climate is changing. That is a thing that's happening, and I feel like we need to start branching out before it's too late. And sure, we have a lot of baggage, but it would be nice just to at least start making other colonies.
I think we probably will go to space before we've kind of unified as a species, but I don't think we'll have earned it until we have.
Yeah. No, I get that, but also it would also cause a larger problem going into space, because unification would be more difficult if we're a multiplanetary species. It's very difficult to unify if communicating with Mars has an 8-minute delay. It would just become ludicrous at that point. So you'd have all of the disorganization on Earth, you'd have all of the disorganization on Mars, and I get where you two are coming from with the fact that it could just be two disorganized planets, but regardless of the disorganization, it does mean that if anything happens to one of the planets, we at least have two, which is, I think, a better place to be standing than where we are now.
Definitely. It wouldn't hurt being able to gather more resources and at least have, like a backup plan in case Earth jacks in and it's like, we need to go somewhere else.
It's just keeping your eggs in more than one basket, really, is the way that I view it. Because if if Earth completely falls down, Mars isn't ideal, but it's at least a building point for if something
I
goes
suppose
horribly wrong.
that presents another question, though. If we're only just beginning to think about space travel, and we can only send a certain amount of people to Mars, will we want to send the best of the human race? In which case, will it become like Mars being the superior planet and Earth being the sort of, the one that was left behind? Will there be some sort of tension there?
That
could happen,
a valid
because
point.
even if we view astronauts are highly intelligent, even like physically fit people, so they are kind of the best of humanity. Like, they have so many tests, it's a nightmare becoming an astronaut. So it would make sense sending the best of the best, and then you're right, that could well happen, them being superior.
And then it's the whole argument of citizenship as well, because if children are born on Mars, then they are literally Martians. Like, they aren't born of Earth anymore. They would be their own subset of humanity at that point. And the reason that I think... So Mars could, of course, become better than humanity if it's the best of us that are up there. But I feel like, people have a tendency to rebel. So as new generations are born on Mars, I feel like there'd definitely be a conflict with the older, more mission-oriented Martians who landed there first.
Unless we could genetically change it somehow, I mean, we could go into that, but I don't think humans will change necessarily. Like, I think we'll always have this kind of hate and divide, and it's like, we can even see now, even just in Britain, how we're divided by Brexit, even, just going back to that quickly, how there's, leavers and remainers. We've kind of joined these groups, and there's a lot of hate involved, so...
It's back to the groups again, it's the natural division. We put ourselves into groups, and the second that there's a disagreement, then there's a...
conflict.
If someone disagrees with you, then you're not going to say that you're wrong. It's... so if you are backed up by the ideology of a group, and another group disagrees with you, then that group is automatically full of idiots, and that's, I think, a massive problem with communication today.
And then to relate that back to what we were going before, I think this is the problem with sort of identity politics and being belonging to an ideology, is that you're never going to say that you're wrong, which is why you need to confront reality and be skeptical about things and take things how they actually are.
It's good to take a step back as well. It's good to take a step back because everyone tends to build up their sort of view of the world, and then it becomes like non-negotiable. So philosophy in that regard, I think, is good because it lets you step back, take a look objectively at how the world is, and sort of remove any points which are unproven, or any points which are just so ingrained in the modern day world, and it's just good to take a step back occasionally and view it as its own thing.
You're right, you are, because Mystiverse, I think you discussed it in your podcast with Philosophy on Ice about how philosophy and science are linked, and I think that's completely right, because I think philosophy should just be a part of humans' kind of ideologies and like where we go in our lives, because without philosophy it's too much certainty, it's too much like... I don't know, I'm thinking of a way to phrase it. It's too much certainty, because we've seen it with religious people, how they're so certain of this and that. When you kind of challenge their beliefs, they don't even know how to react.
But it's also really the same with atheism as well, in the regard that a lot of people who are adamantly sure that there is no God will, they will just completely ignore the possibility that there might be one.
Yeah, I think, and anyone that's sort of an ideologue, I'd say always be wary of people who have an answer for everything, and anything you can throw at them, they'll just deny it, and they'll just, spit something out of their mouth that they've just remembered, and it's just like their go-to facts. You just can't be absolutely adamant about everything, whether you're an atheist or a theist or whatever you believe. You've got to take other people's opinions into account, because it's highly likely that they'll know something that you don't, just from the fact of them being in the world as a different person than you.
Exactly. I think a lot of people get the idea about debating wrong. Tons of people think that having a conversation or debating about something, you do it because you want to win, a lot of people think. But I think it's more about, finding the truth behind something. And it's like, regardless of whose point is right in the end. All that really matters is that both people have gained a new way of viewing the world, and that they can contextualize that with their previous views of how the world was. And I think building off of what you already know is great, but also being able to question what you already know ensures that you don't fall behind or view the world like in a way which is just incorrect.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why perspective is really important, because if we can truly empathise and understand our peers, then we can step out of ignorance and truly understand what people go through, what their lives are, their ideologies, and then when you can connect to people, you can build stuff with them.
Yeah.
I think it was Aristotle who said that it's the mark of the intelligent man to be able to hold two opposing ideas in his head at once and just, think about them.
You should always be challenging your own views and beliefs.
Yeah,
because we're so limited as just things in the world, and it's just arrogance more than anything. Like, what the hell do you know? You're one person in an infinitely complex universe. How the hell can you claim to know anything for certain? You can't. There's too many facts out there for you alone to know, and so you've always got to be questioning yourself and be skeptical of the way you think things are, because the probability is it's not like that at all.
That's actually why I really wanted to do this podcast, because then we can share different views and perspectives, and it's just interesting, really.
Yeah.
I'd say that was it's the whole with a lot of stuff, again, people like I've completely lost my train of thought. I think people end up stuck in their own opinions and stuff, and I think so the reason that me and Joel and Gary started making videos was because of the fact that we had different opinions. We thought it would be interesting to make a group channel where one video could come out and have one opinion tied to it, and then a video could come out the next week and have a completely different opinion from a different person. And it then just becomes sort of a debate, because I think it's important to have a variety of viewpoints instead of just one viewpoint. And so that was the general idea behind the channel. It was just to be a platform where people could, where me and my mates and just whatever could just share our views on the world, even if they were conflicting views and stuff. And that would just allow, I guess, the audience to make up their mind, and also to weigh both arguments against each other and see which one makes more sense to them.
Yeah, I find
one thing.
No, sorry, go on.
I was just about to say, one thing me and Ethan disagree a lot on is different ethics and stuff. So I find it quite interesting.
Yeah, that's what I think is so fascinating about your channel, is that you've got 3 different people making videos, and obviously you've all got different interests. So you're gonna come from different places, and the ideas that you're gonna have are gonna be different, and they might conflict, and you might find some areas where they work together, and you can sort of map out what you think about the world and the universe in video form, and it'll make sort of almost a cohesive picture, because there's multiple people doing it. I think that's really cool.
Well, thank you so much. That's great to hear. It's great as well just being able to run a channel with friends, of course, because I don't think I could have. It's just the whole fact that it also means that you get constant input for your videos. You get just sort of opinions where they say you might have got that bit a bit wrong, something's happened here, or
it's a safety net.
Yeah, it's good just to be able to. It helps to know that you have people there to review your videos and make sure that they're fine and agree with points and disagree with points, and it's just very great to just be collaborative, I guess.
Yeah, what I like about you, Mystiverse, is the way you're actually quite interactive. Your videos, they're very deep topics and high up things, but they're not really pretentious. And even on your Discord server, you're quite active. Even messaging me, it's quite easy to talk to you. There's not this kind of pretentious aura of a philosophy. You seem like a very normal, kind of down-to-earth person, but quite clever.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, there shouldn't be a massive divide between the ideas and the people. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I did the
main reason of philosophy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the ideas are there to be understood and to be talked about, and I like to think that when I'm making these videos, I try and present them in an easy and understandable way as possible, so people can get actually talking about the ideas. That's the important thing. It's not the way I make the videos per se.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the ideas. I mean, I started the channel, it was 2018, 2019, and I was at a house party with my mate, and we were just absolutely pissed, and we were walking through the forest and just chatting about the universe and life and everything, as we were wont to do when joking like that. And we said, we should start a YouTube channel. We should just have these conversations, but open it up to everyone else. And
that is exactly... Sorry, that's exactly why me and Joel and Gaz ended up creating the YouTube channel. It was a similar reason.
To be fair, when we're pissed, we just watch the In-Betweeners, but...
that was...
just as good.
In-Betweeners is a great show.
I like making thought-provoking videos, kind of things that kind of challenge views and beliefs. I think we all do it, definitely. But it's just interesting to kind of... I mean, it can be fun pissing people off, but it's quite fun just to really try and get in someone's head sometimes, and even your own head, and just really try understand some of these thoughts and ideas and concepts, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of learning that goes into making these videos as well, and I'm always up for learning new ideas, and it's just a really fun and efficient way to do what I love and share it with other people as well, and get them in on the conversation.
Something I want to ask you lot about, and I know Ethan's going to lose his mind over this.
Oh no.
What do you think about the ethics of genetic engineering? This is still tying in with humanity. What do you think about that, like, ethically?
I haven't got much of an opinion about it yet, but this term I'm actually doing a bioethics module, so I'll have to get back to you. I don't know, because I'm not against, like, genetically modified, like, fruit and vegetables, but obviously a human baby's a bit different to a carrot, so there's a lot more to think about.
There's a lot of ethical problems with genetic modification and stuff. I don't think that we know enough about it to do anything substantial yet. Like, we can't... It is very much a language, but we don't have the Rosetta Stone of it yet, so we can't write people yet, I think.
We definitely need to make a lot more progress on it before we even try do it on people, but I think there are some positives in there, like... whether it's fixing disabled people and different genes... Sorry, I'm a bit pissed. but whether it's fixing different things... I mean, I don't agree with it cosmetically, like making your kid blonde or something.
Oh yeah, designer babies,
No,
that's...
I don't agree with that
ridiculous.
At all. Yeah, that is a very slippery slope.
I feel like at that point,
stem
what even is
cells
humanity?
and
Oh no,
stuff.
stem cell research as well. That's a very difficult concept to talk about because of the fact that people can argue that stem cells can, if you left them and put them in the right conditions, then they would be a fetus or whatever, and generally they are harvested from fetuses or...
But in a way, you're kind of... I mean, I won't go on
cells.
an abortion stance or anything, but in a way, you're kind of like trading one life for another, and it depends how you feel about that.
Well, yeah, I suppose,
Really.
but... Like, there are... I can't remember quite what this is, but with epigenetics, I think you can take a skin cell and you can... I think it's just 4 genes that differentiate a skin cell from a stem cell. So if you did that, then it would just be a part of you that you've turned into stem cells. And then it starts to become a more difficult concept, because you're technically not killing anything for the stem cells, it's part of you. And it's... Because people can do what they really want with their own bodies, I suppose. And it's just the whole debate of, is it even ethical to be experimenting on yourself? Because you have groups of people like biohackers who go in and change their own genetics and experiment with stuff like that. And there's the whole debate of everyone has freedom to do what they want with their own body, but then it's such a drastic thing, because you're fundamentally changing who you are without fully understanding the language. So it's like going in and trying to code a video game with no knowledge on video games except for a couple lines of code and just messing around with those 2 lines without knowing how it affects anything else. And I feel like if you do that wrong enough, it can be really, really bad for the person who it's happening to. Because if you're doing it to yourself and you don't know what you're doing and how stuff interacts with other stuff, it could just go horribly wrong at any point.
Yeah. The only issue I have with the only issue I have with the whole my body my choice argument is that it's like relevant until it comes up to like suicide, self-harm, addiction.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not
Like,
getting onto a topic
that's
about
kind of,
euthanasia.
I won't. But it's kind of like a grey area there.
It is.
With that argument.
It's very morally grey, I'd say, because I don't think it's more about the intention behind things, I'd say, when it comes to your own body, because people who have been through like horrible times in their lives, it's the horrible times that lead to their conclusion, and not because they have a. So I think it's important to realise why someone has reached a conclusion instead of actually just looking at the conclusion itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is a moral grey area, and I mean, it comes to a head with stuff like abortion and euthanasia, which is probably a bit too deep for this podcast.
For this, yeah.
Yeah. But
It's just-
interesting discussions nonetheless.
Yeah, it's quite heavy as a topic because.
I think.
Oh
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think we won't talk about it like right now, I suppose, too in depth, because this is meant to be a bit sort of lighter hearted, I suppose. Just I don't know, but I think it is important to touch these topics because they are interesting and it helps you get your own ethical standpoint a lot easier.
Yeah, it's the thing about, because you can touch a topic and then you can dive into it, and I feel like there's some stuff which you still do need to be sensitive about in the world. Like I do believe that you should be able to talk about anything, but also there's lots of opinions divide people these days, and some topics you just can't talk about really, and that's very difficult to come to terms with because of the fact that I do like to talk about just anything and everything just whenever. I'm a very talkative person, and the idea that, like, to some people some things are off limits is just very difficult, you know? It's... Because once you can't talk about something, it just... I don't know. It just...
Definitely. Something I've realised about politics is that no matter what you say about politics, you're always going to piss one person off. Doesn't matter what you say. You're always going to piss at least one person off.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff like that, but I feel like that doesn't just apply to politics. I think that just applies to any train of thought.
Yeah, I feel like if you're having a proper conversation, you're actually listening to the other person.
Yeah.
To get to terms with what they're saying, and to probe, you know, how they feel about certain things, you've got to be able to risk offending them. Otherwise, how are you going to get anywhere?
Exactly. It's the whole thing, though, that some people just like a lot of interactions between people. You get people just being cautious, and I feel like a lot of anxiety in social situations is due to people not knowing what they can put on the table or not. And it's the fact that these days people... Because I feel like a lot of people don't want the conversation anymore, which is really upsetting.
Censorship, really.
It is.
I'm not going into government conspiracies, but censorship, it's a lot more censored than what it used to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's good, like, we can't show racist stuff on TV anymore. I'm happy with that, kind of. But then there's other things where they take it too far and you get into that whole political correctness and it just gets a bit drastic.
It's the whole what's too far thing, though. Like, you never know. It's I don't know, it's like 1984. You know, the book,
you want to know something interesting, actually?
Oh, yeah.
My video, The Boogeyman, where I question religious views and kind of it's more about... the whole video is just about kind of questioning things like you were talking about earlier, Mystiverse, how we kind of can't be certain about everything in religion. Yeah. It's been partially blocked in some countries.
Has it?
It's got like one of those yellow things where so like, I don't know, censorship. They're censoring me.
Yeah, it's in the book 1984. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I've read it, but I've read excerpts from it and stuff. There's a part of it where it starts talking about how in 1984, which of course at the time was this big future world, that they would be deleting the past to fit the current narrative, and I feel like that's definitely something to be worried about with, because you notice it a little bit with the world today in the fact that people almost try and remove the past. Well, exactly, they try and remove the past to fit the current narrative, which it's you have to be careful with that. I think the past should never be deleted or like thrown away. I think it should be acknowledged and acknowledged as being wrong, but I don't think we should ever get rid of it.
We've seen that a lot recently with tearing down statues.
No, I don't know about that. That's a difficult topic.
It's fine tearing them down. It should have been, because we shouldn't we shouldn't look up to racists or whatever.
No, completely.
But they should be put in museums, tearing them down and just trying to erase them from history. It's a bit silly.
I don't like the erasure of the past. I don't think that's ever going to help anyone, and I do agree it probably should have been put in a museum, or something should have been done about it ages ago, though.
Yeah, the point of the past, as it still exists in the collective memory, is to learn from it, and we know from
exactly
just a quick look back at the 20th century, not to do any of that again. And if you delete that, then how are we ever going to learn? It's just going to be endless cycles of
And that's the issue, because a lot of people think that by deleting the past you remove all the issues of the past, but all you do is give free rein for the issues to come back again. And if you delete them again, then they'll keep coming back and keep coming back, and it'll just get worse every single time. And so
I think I said it.
Oh, yeah, no, continue.
I'm so bad at interrupting.
No, don't worry about it.
I said it earlier, how the world's a cycle. Well, history does repeat itself. It does it all the time. You see it with families, when people have been abused, say, physically. A parent's abused a child. A lot of the time, that parent has been physically abused themselves. So that's history repeating itself. So we have to learn from history to actually be able to not do that stuff again.
Yeah. You do need to consider the past. I can't stress that enough. I feel just it's such an important part of the present. Without the past, the present doesn't really exist. It's I think I said this in my last video. The point of memory is to contextualize the world around you.
Actually, they touched that in Rick and Morty. I think I don't know if you watched that, but it's about, I think it was Morty's Mind Blowers. And Morty said, he said, maybe if you didn't erase these memories, I'd be able to learn from them and stop making so many mistakes. And obviously that probably was just for face value, it just sort of sounded right. But little Morty there is completely right.
Yeah. To be fair, it takes a very high IQ to I'm not even going to make that joke. But no, they do touch on some points in that show, and I do think that is a point as well. They could delve deeper into them, but with the whole the episode which you're talking about, which I've watched, I do think again you have traumatic memories from the past. You have people want to get rid of them, but the whole point of a trauma is it's there to tell you not to do something again, and that's a very dark way of actually looking at it, but that's what it is. And I in modern day context, it's a lot more difficult to think about because of the fact that the world has changed so fundamentally from when we were just creatures, just animals, just like anything else. And now that the world has changed so much, a lot of issues in the modern day are affected by things that we wouldn't ever encounter in the wild. So you have situations like taxes and mortgage and all of that, which was never a thing in the wild, and they're abstract problems, which means that they require abstract solutions. And even though we can comprehend abstract solutions,
it's kind of like an illusion.
We aren't wired that way. Yeah, exactly. It's
taxes, houses, they aren't real things, to be honest. It's kind of like money isn't a real thing, to be honest.
It's a construct, but it holds value, which it's weird, because it's sort of the conflict of I know this isn't real, but it's in my hand.
Though, we do.
We're so complicated at this point that if we didn't have constructs like laws and authority and, I guess things that have a value, the world just wouldn't work properly. And I like to think that money is an actual thing. It isn't what you're looking for. If anything, each slip of paper is an IOU. That's really what it is. It's an IOU, one thing worth this.
I mean, if you had 1 million stacks of fivers on a desert island, they ain't going to do you no good.
They aren't going to do you any good unless there's a supermarket on the desert island. Well, yes, you could burn them.
Fire.
I'm not sure how long they're burned for, and in England now they're made of plastic.
The plastic ones, they probably kill you.
Well, that's a way to go out, isn't it?
Try and get high off it.
Joel! Desert island argument is, you ever hear that at parties and stuff? Like, if people use it a lot, if you're alone on the desert island, so there's if you're alone on a desert island and there was like one animal and no like greenery or anything, would you eat the animal? I've heard this argument said to people who are like vegetarians and stuff before, and it's just the idea of this mythical desert island as well. I feel like
you could eat the animal's legs, so then it's not like
no, that's
completely
dark.
dead.
No,
Yeah,
that's
legs.
awful. That is
Ethically,
awful.
you didn't kill it.
No, well, personally, I'd look for what the animal was eating. I think I that's not me saying that, by the way. Someone else said that. I just stole it. But yeah, it's the desert island is so like with sorry, that completely got off track there. Going back to money and
It's no track.
no, there isn't. There's no train. They're going back to money and its actual value in the world. A lot of people make their life's goal just to get money, like just to have money in their possession, and I think it's more about because again, from a young age, you're taught that is what the goal of life is. You're meant to get money, get married, have kids, die, and that's what you're told pretty much. And so lots of people hold value in the actual money itself instead of what you can buy with the money. And I can't remember who said this. I think it was a film director who said if you spend £10,000 and don't care that it's like £10,000, you can stretch it out and make it feel like $1 million if you don't care about it. And I'm not saying be reckless with money, but it's also the fact that you shouldn't hoard it like Scrooge, and that's definitely a thing.
Well, there's me going against the grain, being a philosopher. I'll never earn any money anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I kind of disagree with what you said earlier, Ethan, about how we're told, oh, you get money, you have kids, you die. We're not necessarily told that. In school, we're given all these fancy illusions about having whatever career we want.
Yeah.
Really, we are kind of just ants or bees, but more glorified, more intelligent.
Completely. I was going to make a video on that. Yeah, no, we do have that.
But it's more just so we pay our taxes, so we do our bit. And the reason we have kids, we glorify marriage and stuff is
it's just
because
so that they
we need
can
some
pay their
things to
taxes
replace
and do their
ourselves.
stuff. Exactly, and it's I'm not sure it's encouraging a vicious cycle, but there isn't an alternative. It's just the way the world is, I think, and that's you can view it as a negative, or you can view it as something which you can use as an opportunity. One thing which I find is very confusing about the school system is the fact that it's fundamentally conflicting in the way that it teaches you. I'm not sure if either of you know what I'm on about, but I mean the fact that in school they tell you that individuality is key, speaking up is important, sharing your views is important, that you are your own person and that you matter, while at the same time teaching you to put your hand up to ask a question, to sit still and just do monotonous work for hours. It feels like a direct conflict with what it's telling you to do and what it's asking you to do. It just feels like there's an inherent thing there.
And then you've got all kind of Michael Foucault's objections that schools are like prisons.
I was just about to say that. I've watched a lot of prison documentaries, and I've known people who have been in prison. I've visited prisons and stuff. I don't belong to the streets. I'm just saying. Prisons, in my opinion, fundamentally is a lot more like school, because I've worked and I've found that school hasn't set me up for work at all, whatsoever. I've found
just
that
the education system.
I think, not getting too political, obviously, but I think school could do with somewhat of a reform, because I think, like you said about it being about individualism, I think it is quite contradictory, some of their teachings.
It's a bit out of date, I think, because it's like 250 years old and they haven't really amended it since then.
It's for factories, really.
It is, and the actual climate of work these days has completely changed from how school is explaining it to students, and I think as it gets more specialised as you move up through the system, I do believe that. But at the start, it's sort of work and jobs and everything is this big, scary entity, and then you move out into it, and it just becomes... It's completely different from how it's explained to you in school, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It's weird. I found something when I started working. I found something that helped me more than school ever did, was doing cadets. So that was I was in Marine Cadets. I know I'm getting a bit personal.
Yeah.
But I found doing that, kind of like the camaraderie of that, following orders, that kind of thing, I found that helped me a lot more with work than school ever did. Because it's at school, you kind of get unlimited chances. Like, you're not going to get, like, kicked out unless you're terrible. You kind of keep getting chances. Whereas, like, in work, if you talk to someone like you talk to a teacher, I mean, it depends how bad you are, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. You're just going to get, like, kicked out of work straight away. They don't put up with that stuff. I think if schools were better, like, people could find their talents and skills. Like, even us, we're all interested in philosophy. Apart from RE, we've been very deprived of this sort of field in schools.
Yeah, RE is very focused as well on, like, specific topics. They don't cover, like, in... Because when I, like, flipping ages ago now, when I was in school, RE was... It was very much focused. It wasn't like every religion. It was, you focused on one topic, you did that for the whole everything, and then that was what you did at the end of it. And I think that it wasn't sufficient. It didn't teach you enough about stuff. It was just focusing on one specific thing. And again, it's the lack of the diversity of knowledge that's the bit which annoys me.
Yeah, I was quite lucky, really, because the first time I studied philosophy was for A-level, and I went to a boys' school for my, middle school and GCSEs, and the sixth form was mixed with the girls' school that was up the road, and they only offered philosophy at the girls' school, and if I wasn't aware that that was an option, if I didn't go to that school, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because it's not a very common option, and so I had to go and learn philosophy at the girls' school, but yeah, I was incredibly thankful to have that opportunity. It's obviously changed the way my life has gone.
Yeah, it's philosophy. I've really just talked since the moment I was born, I think. And it's...
Yeah, you never shut up.
No, I never do. I never shut up. And so, just being able to talk to people about it, it's great because of the fact that, well, half the people don't give you the time of day when you want to talk about, like, in-depth conversations and stuff and have in-depth talks about the universe, the nature of being and everything. And yeah, I get that having it constantly would be a bit annoying, but it's just... I like hearing other people's viewpoints on it, and a lot of people tend to just tell you to stop or to be a bit quieter or whatever, and there's not, like, hardly anyone can bring anything new to the table unless you're... I mean, I guess it's all about finding the right people to talk with, finding the right topics to talk about. It's just good to be able to talk, I suppose, and there's a
lot of power in a conversation.
Yeah, completely. It's the fact that it really shocks me that some people just don't want to talk about stuff. And that
even now
weird.
In this conversation, we might have changed someone's view on something. It doesn't.
Well, fingers crossed.
We don't know.
Yeah,
we might be cancelled. Who knows?
I hope.
But it is interesting to have these conversations because it broadens your horizon. It's interesting.
It's very good to get a different person's viewpoint on things, regardless. Because one thing which I never want is it just to be an echo chamber. Like, the reason that because you could just argue that if all that matters is your own opinions, why don't you just talk to yourself? And I don't think that that's a thing. That's not why I go into conversations. I think that what's important is the fact that it is a dialogue. Otherwise, you are just talking to yourself and you learn nothing from it.
Yeah, I firmly believe that gaining more knowledge can never be to your detriment. I think it can only be a positive.
Yeah, it is difficult in the sense that you will have to question some, like, core stuff, some core beliefs which you've held since, like, forever. But it's also good to question those things. At the start, you might think that it's bad to look at yourself, your own existence, all the stuff that you hold as fact, and just to say, no, I'm going to view this completely, just distance myself from this. But I think without doing that, you really are just living a one-note life, and there isn't really a point to that.
The human brain is the most powerful thing on Earth, and so, as humans, we need to utilise that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. like you were saying, it's like you're playing one note, but you could be part of a symphony, and I know which is better, really. I know which I'd rather be part of.
Yeah, it's just the fact that a lot of people these days as well, they don't know what they want to do with their life. Like, I sort of don't. I'm sort of drifting, if I'm being honest.
I just drink.
Joel. That's... But yeah, it is better to be part of something. It's better to be able to hold a dialogue, to understand how other people view this world, because, you know, but a lot of people these days, you ask people what they want to be when they're older, and tons of people just say famous. And I think that's the wrong way of doing it. Because you notice that these days, in the modern context, there's a lot more films, there's a lot more albums, there's just tons more media, and tons more stuff. There's a lot more
influencers, technically.
There's
we're
more
influencers.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it's like tons of people now are shouting out at once, but they're not shouting out of the fact that they want to get an opinion across. They're shouting because they want to be famous, and that's the wrong reason for doing it.
Yeah.
It's all about... It's not about just screaming and hoping someone hears you and gives you a medal. It's about getting your core beliefs across, questioning those beliefs, and just understanding the world. And I think that's the same with music, it's the same with film, and just really any artistic medium. It's all about expression. And I feel like a lot of people these days, or just a lot of people just forever, since the dawn of man, have seen other people making stuff and wondered why they couldn't do it, and I think that's because they haven't really put themselves into it, or they're just doing it to get famous or to be recognised.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've got to bring something new to the table.
Conversation is so important, because if we can truly empathise and like come to an understanding and reach a conclusion of our own views, then that's how humans can truly unite, if we can just kind of move past our differences. Because we have a lot more in common than we have different as people.
Yeah. It's... I think it was George Carlin, he did a brilliant video on this, where he's talking about all the little things which are universal moments between all of humanity. And it was just little things, like when you're walking up the stairs and you think there's one more step and you just sort of fall down and you're like, oh... now you've just got to walk, and you've got to put your leg out a bit further every time for the people behind you, so that they think that that's always how you walk. Or like when you pick up a suitcase and it's lighter than you thought it would be, and it just shoots up. And it's just these little universal moments that tie everyone in. And people do tend to focus on the differences between people, which is... I mean, again, that is there because of it would be a survival benefit. You need to get people who are like you. You need to make sure that they are similar to you, so that they are good at collecting resources, so that you can have conversations with them, so that you can do whatever. But also, I feel like it's important not to lose the difference, like the core... It's important not to lose the core similarities that make us human.
Yeah, I think, well, hopefully with our channels we can push it more in the direction of united than focusing on our differences.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
That's all we can try to do.
Yeah, it's all about sharing views, making sure that other people have the ability to share their views. And I think, like, I always like to read the comment section of just videos in general, because it's everyone's opinions. Yeah, no, one thing which I do have to say about that, though, with, like, dislikes and stuff on videos, I genuinely would like people to comment why they disliked a video. And that's not because I want to improve, it's because, well, it is a bit because I want to improve, but of course it's also because I want to know what their opinions are on the matter. Because I feel like with a lot of stuff, people tend to think... Because I'm talking about points, but I'm not aggressively saying that... I'm trying not to aggressively say that my points are the right points, and I do like people to come back with their own points, their own opinions, their own views, and I think that if there was more people in the comments section who had left dislikes and expressed why they had left dislikes, I'd prefer that, definitely.
I know my favourite comments on my videos, there's people who are just twats, who are just there to spread hate.
Oh, yeah.
But there are other people that say, I didn't like this video, here's why, and they give a properly thought out argument, they've considered my points, and they put their points forward. I love those comments, because they're thinking about the ideas.
They've watched the whole video.
Yeah.
They've actually watched the whole video.
The fact
I hate it when people just watch the start. And I can tell when I read some comments, you haven't even watched the whole video, have you? You've just done something and kind of just ran out, kind of. I hate that.
But when someone, in that rare occasion when someone disagrees with you and they have an educated reason as to why they've disagreed with you, that there's no better feeling than that, because it sounds dumb to say, but I get something out of disagreeing with someone who has properly considered my points and whose points I've properly considered, because it's just nice being able to then have a dialogue and to understand why they think the things they do, for them to understand why you think the things that you do. And again, it's good to talk about these things with other people.
Yeah, definitely.
In general, disagreements are great, agreements are great, just talking is great, conversation, and I think that's all that really matters.
We're the luckiest species on Earth because we do have this language, and I know dolphins do as well, but we do more with it. I think we're so lucky that we can actually communicate with each other, and that is like our little trap card or whatever. I can't think of something.
That's what makes us it's what we are,
because we can use communication. That's I think that's pretty much how we dominated Earth, because
completely.
Humans are literally the nerds of the animal kingdom. I mean, if you look at a lion, I can't beat up a lion. I mean, I could try, but I'm not going to.
That wouldn't end well. No.
Is that a dare?
It's not a dare. Don't beat up a lion, Joel. That's not what we want you to do. Okay. But it's the fact that we are. I wonder if any other animal questions their existence. It's the fact that. So there's self-awareness, and then there's actually wondering why you're here. Because you could argue that most animals on the planet, most complicated or complex animals, are aware that they're here. But how many of them actually ask the question, why am I here?
I don't think they do, and that's kind of why they're lucky. They have that ignorance is bliss blanket. When I think of my cats or something, they don't care about what's going on. Yeah, there's coronavirus, riots, political and economic despair. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They're chill.
And that's great. That is great. And sometimes you just look at your cat and you wish, or you just look at any animal and you're like, that's the life, innit? Because of course, you can't argue with the fact that ignorance is bliss. It is something which is nice, but also I feel like if you live in ignorance, then you don't grow as a person. It's not a full life.
You haven't reached your potential.
Yeah, you haven't really lived.
Yeah, exactly. You haven't lived at all if you live in ignorance. And it's there was I can't remember who said this again. I'm really bad with quotes today. I'm so sorry, but the point is, someone said, a man who reads no books lives one life. A man who reads 100 books lives 100 lives. And that's
Oh, that was George R.R. Martin.
Was it? Wow.
I think so.
I'm so bad with quotes. I don't know why. I'm just so awful with names. It's just a weakness of mine. But yeah, I feel like that rings true. Not specifically with books, but just about knowledge in general and being able to take into consideration the world. Because again, people who just live their life believing one thing, going through with one thing, just doing one thing for their entire life without questioning why, what have they done? And that's I think that's a very important thing that we need to consider.
And that's why I love doing things like this, because
I thought of what you said.
It's just fun.
Mystiverse. I thought of what you said about how you were in a forest talking with your mate. You were drunk. That's how me and Ethan started this channel, because I think we're both just gone to college. I was absolutely miles away, and it was all that thinking, all this sort of thinking. Is this the right decision? What am I doing? And I think that's kind of how the channel started. Sadly, I wasn't drunk, but it was kind of thinking, it was all this thinking that kind of got me into the channel, I suppose, and philosophy. I don't consider myself like a philosopher, but I guess I just think about a lot. I think we all do, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't need the title of philosopher to have these sort of conversations. This is the sort of conversation that can be had by anyone and should be had by anyone. It shouldn't be limited to professional academic philosophy.
Oh yeah, totally.
It should be open to everyone.
Yeah.
It's the whole because the Greeks were very good at philosophy.
Not as good as the British,
flipping-
but go on.
Oh yeah, okay then. I think was Diogenes Greek? I can't remember now. I'm pretty sure he was. Because it was I can't remember. Was it Plato came? Yeah, it was Plato who came up with the definition for a chicken. No, it wasn't the chicken. It was a man. Definition of a man as being any featherless biped. Of course, they didn't know what kangaroos were at that time. And Diogenes came in with a plucked chicken, said, "Behold a man," and that's just brilliant. I think Diogenes, he definitely shows that you don't need to be particularly academic to be into philosophy, in the sense that he just lived in an old
philosopher
wine
of
barrel.
the common man. He is.
He's
Absolute legend.
a legend, complete legend. Yeah, Diogenes the dog, self-appointed nickname after urinating on someone. Brilliant.
I can't remember their name, but I like the guy in your video where it's the guy who wanked in the street. He seemed like a top fella.
That's Diogenes!
Yeah, that is
Is that
Diogenes.
That's Diogenes.
Top
yeah,
fella.
yeah.
I'd buy him.
Top fella, completely
Absolute lad.
no filter whatsoever. Oh my god, yeah. It's the fact that he is so renowned as just being this great philosopher. And again, he was just a guy who lived in a barrel, and that was his life. It was essentially a homeless man, but he was just like, that just shows the real, like, anyone can be a philosopher, is the point which I'm trying to get at. And I think Diogenes is enough proof that anyone can talk about these deep things and then get recognition for it, and also have a dialogue about it, and it's just nice.
If you want to romanticise his homelessness, we could say that he was homeless because he had a detachment from materialistic possessions.
He did have a detachment from materialistic possessions. His one possession that he owned was a bowl, and then he saw a kid drinking out of a puddle, I believe, and then he just got rid of the bowl.
Yeah, he was an asceticist.
Yeah. He really... Yeah, I feel like I could never live my life to the extent of him, but he's definitely...
No, but you've got to praise him for doing so. Like, you've got to admire it.
You have to admire the fact that he could actually do that. And
the
also
sheer
the
commitment.
fact... Yeah, and it's what I find weird as well, and I think it also shows the how the world changes, how society changes, how viewpoints change, is the fact that Diogenes was ridiculed because of the fact that he used to eat in the marketplace. Because if you were in the marketplace and you ate, that was seen as being really inappropriate at the time. And nowadays, you get people just walking around with food and stuff, and that's completely acceptable. And I think that also shows the fact that morals and traditions and everything just changes over time. And I think Diogenes, he knew this. He just did whatever he wanted, really. Well, no, not even within reason. He just did whatever he wanted. But
Legend.
The point is, and I think... It's the fact that, now that's an important question, because is the world, like are morals, I'm not sure if I'm tying this back to an earlier point or not, but really, are there some universal morals, or are they always completely in flux?
I think there's
are there some things that we know
code
about?
of conduct. Like, I don't think it's just a construct that we feel guilty after killing.
Yeah, no, that feels definitely programmed in.
I think it's...
But then again, governments and stuff, in like wars and stuff, it's completely fine and you get congratulated.
That's because they've got an excuse for it. They're like covering it up. I'm not anti-war, but... Well, not really.
Yeah.
But they've got a kind of patrioticness to it, where it's like, yeah, but you're doing it because of this, because of that. They kind of outweigh the good with the bad, and I think... But then you get a lot of soldiers with PTSD, so inflicting pain is always going to be something morally that humans struggle with.
I was just going to say that could like actual conflict in like wars and stuff just be viewed as group versus group sort of mentality again?
Yeah, definitely.
Because borders aren't a thing, and all it really is, if you take away all of the constructs such as patriotism and for queen and country and stuff, because queens don't exist, countries don't exist, none of it exists, all you're doing is just killing a person. If you really whittle it down to what it is.
Yeah, but
and I feel like
give it reason, don't we? It's like, I suppose, it's just an excuse for violence, because humans are a naturally violent species, and it's a shame.
We are a violent species.
But we are.
It's something which is important. It's always going to happen. I think life is inherently violent. It needs to be, because it's really just an algorithm that favours being here and to not being here. And of course it would, because if it's not here, then it can't be here. And so it's going to be violent and try and fight to remain, because if it isn't here, then it isn't here, so it can't make more copies of itself that are here. And I like that as well, that it doesn't really have a goal in mind, but in not having a goal, it ends up accidentally creating one, which is to survive.
Yeah, it seems quite paradoxical, doesn't it? But I suppose that's the way things are.
Yeah. It's more just the fact that life as a thing is... It's self-replication. If something is bad at self-replicating and self-replicates and just does it, and then it's just pretty much, if you die, you're dead, which means you can't self-replicate, and if you live, then you can self-replicate. There's no inherent goal in mind, it's just how it is. That is just a fact. If you aren't here, then you aren't here. If you are here, then you are here. So if you're here and you're programmed to self-replicate, then that's exactly what you're going to do.
Actually, something I thought of when you were talking about the marketplace and stuff, it's funny because in Tudor times, being pale, fat, and having black teeth, I think I told you about this the other day.
Yeah.
Pale, fat, and having black teeth was a sign of wealth, and it was very desirable because I guess the black teeth showed that you could afford sugar.
Eat sugar,
fat,
which was really...
showed you can afford food, and being pale shows that you don't have to work outside, like on the docks or anything. Whereas now...
And now everyone wants white teeth,
yeah, if you look at like sort of
skin,
Love
to be
Island
thin.
people, it's all about being like super slim, white teeth, very tan. So it's weird how that kind of changes.
Because that's another thing, it's like beauty standards change over time as well. Like what people want out of other people, how people look. Because before, like, if you showed an ankle, that's... Oh no, you better not do that, you know? And it's changed. Stuff does change over time.
What I like about our videos is, because even though we will bring up pop culture references, it's almost timeless. Like the ideas and concepts about humanity. I mean, obviously there will be things that age, but it's not.
Just
we're not
any
just filling in
philosophy
some
YouTuber,
trend.
really. Yeah, it's... I mean, you got to make the references. It's fun to make the references, but the point is, that's what's good about, I think, just the idea of having a conversation in general. It is timeless, just to be able to talk about things. Maybe some of the specific points aren't timeless, but the whole goal of it will inevitably be timeless. A lot of the conversations don't really have an answer. Like the whole... I was doing a thing a while ago. It was a philosophy thing. I can't remember what it was. But it was... One of the questions was, do we have free will? I made a video on it, Death by Dominoes, which is really talking about how everything is cause and effect. But then it's the question of, if everything is cause and effect and we don't have free will, then is there any responsibility? Well, of course there is. We feel like there is, and that's the thing. But at the same time, this would dictate that there probably isn't. So I feel like a lot of the questions that are asked don't really have an answer. And I think the act of just having a conversation is also very important.
But I feel like our conversations, even if the ideas are sort of, eternal, but even if the questions we kind of raise along the way, the answers we raise, become outdated over time, all these conversations, they're sort of like instantiations of the abstract idea of endeavouring to discover more knowledge that can never go out of date. That's a timeless thing. The pursuit of knowledge.
It's inherently human to look for more stuff, which... Well, not more stuff, that's a terrible way of phrasing it on my part here, but, it's... To be human is to wonder why you're human, which is... I'm not sure if that's ironic. I don't think it is. I think I've completely misused irony there. But it is the point of being here, and I think things which are inherently human are, timeless. If you are a person, at least. It's... The fact that we question we make assumptions about the world, we question those assumptions. Most animals make assumptions about the world, they go through with those assumptions. That's just how they live. And it's the level of abstract thinking and questioning which is what distinguishes us as an actual species. It's the question then about moving on with that and going towards other frontiers, like other planets, other places in the universe. I feel like those questions will always be there, but that it will just be ever expanding with the more places that we end up in. Because it's very much, we rationalise what we're thinking about with where we are. So if you're on another planet looking up at the sun and thinking something completely different, just completely new things will come into your head, new questions that you've never considered before. And I think that the art of questioning is the art that will just be here forever.
Yeah, that's why we've got to go into all these undiscovered territories of knowledge and put one foot in somewhere that you don't know, because all sorts of new questions are going to come up from that and provide new answers that will then go on to provide new questions. It's just the way, we live, half in order, half in chaos, and you got to tread that line carefully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also
something that I do want to touch on, but sort of is the illusion of free will. That absolutely terrifies me, thinking that we don't have any control over our actions whatsoever. Because I think, Ethan, you said a while ago, how our brains, they decide what they're going to do before they even do it. And I find that really weird, because I've always kind of, I suppose, wanted to take responsibility for actions and things. Like, I don't want to be able to blame something else, so I find that really weird, I suppose.
It's a very difficult thing to think about. It's because we feel like we have free will, or at least we have an understanding that we have free will, but if you really think about it, all that we are doing is we're taking the past, we're taking the present, we're contextualizing it, and we're coming to a conclusion. And we didn't decide on what happened in the past, we didn't decide on what happened in the present, and so it really just becomes a continuation of logic at that point. Because then there's the whole thing about what is the actual self in all of this mess, because if we are just logical machines, then where is the bit which is deep in there that's able to say, hello, I'm me, I exist, and I'm able to have a conversation on Discord with two other people?
Yeah.
Like, what part of
They used to believe the
mechanism
soul was part of the brain. They thought it was an actual, body part.
That's weird, I never knew that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally believe in a soul. I think we are kind of just brain computers, but I think that's cool. We're pretty cool.
I don't think that really takes away from it at all. I think, yeah, we are. It's impressive, the fact that this could, and I do understand why there's the whole attachment to there being some divine design to it all. But I just think it's really impressive that, regardless of if there is a divine design, I think it's impressive that any of this can exist at all, just as it is, because it's so unlikely.
Yeah, it does blow your mind about how everything just is here and it does all work, and it's just it does seem like very fine-tuned for us to be here and ask these questions.
It's also the fact that we've just we're really questioning is trying to figure out the language of the universe, and I think the fact that we're even able to talk over such a large distance on a computer, which is something which is made by man and completely just created and figured out from the just rules of reality. Even just talking on Discord is proof of why questioning things is so important, because this wouldn't have been possible if we'd just stayed in the savannah.
Yeah, someone didn't question how I can't think of any names of who did what and who invented what, but if someone can question how can we communicate over a distance and work on things, we wouldn't have this now.
And that's just insane. It's the fact that, because really the internet isn't a thing. There are physical bits of the internet and stuff, but the fact is everyone takes it for granted, it's been here for ages now, and it's just sort of there. No one really thinks about it.
We've grown up with it, so we're especially kind of used to it.
It's just the fact that it's so here. It's like this new bit of the world. We're all used to it, but if you really think about it, it's bloody insane.
But it's like what you were saying about Joel, what you were saying about how someone questioned about, how we can communicate over long distances and that. I think our job then is to kind of, for the future generations, for them to look back and think, oh, wasn't it great of them to think about this? And that's our job to think about those questions now.
Definitely.
That's what we've got to find out.
Yeah, completely.
Forgive me, I can't remember exactly what you said, but I know you said it in the podcast with Philosophy on Ice about how philosophy, it's like the building blocks to science, or the key to science, which I totally agree with that. I think we wouldn't have science, because everything is science pretty much, even from our biology to our computers, whether that be in physics. It's all just down to questioning how we can make this better, what we can do. I don't know.
Science is really putting philosophy into place, I think. It's continuing with philosophy. Science is saying, why is this like this? I'm going to test why this is like this and write down what I find out. So science is very much an extension of philosophy, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the fact that science and philosophy are intertwined. They're sort of one thing. If you really think about it, again, science is looking at the world, writing down what you know about the world, comparing it with what you want to find out about the world, and just coming to conclusions about it. Like, we weren't born with the knowledge of chemistry and physics and biology. That has been collected over the course of, thousands and thousands of years from.
It's been given to us by those before us. There's the quote about how the man who plants seeds for a tree, he knows he'll never sit in the shade of. Forgive me, I cannot remember the end of it. But it's something like that. Like, we've been given this information by those before us, so it's kind of our moral duty to keep it going on to the ones after us.
Yeah, definitely. And it's sort of insane, the fact that kind of what we're taught now in just GCSE science and physics and that, we probably know more than Isaac Newton knew about the universe.
Oh, completely.
All these geniuses that have come before us, we probably know more than all of them combined due to the efforts.
It's just so accessible now. It's the fact that I'm pretty sure someone said this. A high school student born today knows more than it was Kutzkaza. I'm pretty sure he said this. That a high school student born today knows more than Albert Einstein did when he was alive.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, that's just insane. It makes sense because of the fact that we are always learning more and adding to it, but it's the fact that, sure, a student today might know more than Albert Einstein, but that's only because of the work of Albert Einstein, and everyone's just building off of each other. Because with a lot of other animals, it's like sort of built in. Like, you get some teachings from your parents and stuff, but a lot of it's genetic. And then with humans, we have language, and that's very complicated. It brings in a whole new element of being able to explain the past, because a squirrel doesn't know their family tree. They just sit there and they go, I'm a squirrel, I will live, that's it. And humans have the ability to say, I'm a human, I will live, there were people who lived before me, they did this. And I think that's something which is, it gives you a unique perspective on the universe.
Well, linking that back to humanity being a cycle, we're kind of just, each generation as it goes, we're kind of just giving more and more to each generation. So that's why I wanted to talk about space exploration earlier, because we keep progressing at quite a rapid pace now. It's interesting to see how far it will go.
It just makes me wonder if we will be a multiplanetary species in my lifetime.
I kind of doubt that, to be honest.
I want it to be a thing. I want there to be people on Mars before I die, at least. And I know, that is... Death only really upsets me because of the fact that it means that I'm going to miss out on the future. Because, flipping the 19th century, Victorian times, when everyone was just wandering around and being all Victorian.
Yeah, something that inspires me when we're talking about what our ancestors have given us and what we can give our predecessor, whatever the word is, the ones,
descendants.
My kids, grandkids. My great-granddad, I'm not flexing, my great-granddad fought in World War II, and his dad fought in World War One. And when we have the poppy and it's November and we think about all sacrifice, I think if they wouldn't have done that, I couldn't be here. So, that's the same with all of us, all of Britain, all of Europe, all of the world in a way. With anything, I think it's interesting because they've sacrificed a lot for us to have this. So, it is, if we're looking at it from a very ethical standpoint, it is our moral obligation to do the same for those after us.
We spend our lives paving the path for the people ahead of us, and there isn't really an end to the path. There isn't a goal, but it's
all we know. It's
nice. It's good to continue searching, because really, what is the point of living if not to search for stuff? It used to just be to live and that was it, and try not to die. But look at us.
It's beyond survival. Now it's thriving.
We've got living down. It's working pretty well for most people. A lot of people. And I think that now we're at a comfortable state, it's very good to actually look out at the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that should be our goal as a as each generation goes on, kind of expand the horizons just a little bit more.
Completely. It's a weird old life, but it is life nonetheless, and it will keep on moving forwards regardless of what we do. So, if it's going to keep on moving, you might as well try and move along with it. And I think that is really all that matters, because it's whatever we do, the next generation is going to come along and they're going to know more than we knew. So it's at least important while we are here to give them something to talk about, and I think that's important.
And I mean, if they can look back at this podcast and say, well, they were wrong about everything, at least they knew more than we do now.
Well, there we go, that's a success.
Yeah, we gave them something to do, a little activity to disprove us and make our lives useless. I'm joking.
It's also just... yeah, that was quite dark, but it's also the fact that, in general, this, like, the documentation of the world has changed completely. Like, in the past, it would just happen, there'd be like one photo, one document of someone who was alive, and now everyone can document every moment that they're alive, and I feel like that has immense power to help the people who come next, because before you'd say, hey look, this is an image of your granddad, and hold up a little black and white faded photo of someone, and now you can go online, look up any name, and you've seen a person's life.
Has anyone seen Trainspotting?
I have not seen Trainspotting yet.
No, please don't spoil it. It's on my list. I really want to watch it.
Alright, okay, I won't spoil it, but I'll just say...
Joel,
I'm not
please.
spoiling it, I'm just saying, in the film, what you're talking about now, Ethan, in the second one, this guy, I won't even say their name, but this guy, he does talk about how we do... It's just a speech, it's not like a plot point, but he does talk about how we are... Well, you were just... Oh my god, my mind. He was talking about how we like document our lives, and how it was only really short and quick, but I think he had a lot of good points, like how we document our lives, how it's all data kind of, and I completely agree with that, as in we do document a lot of what we do. Even now we're documenting a conversation, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely something that's been done a lot, and people get very warped into it, kind of social media likes.
Going back to like a thing which I said quite a bit ago, it is just the shouting for the sake of shouting. Definitely. Some of it, which I don't like. I feel like social media is incredibly powerful.
We're a sociable creature, and we want attention.
Yeah, of course we want attention, but a lot of people, I think, just want attention instead of having a reason to get people's attention, and that's the issue. It's not about shouting for the sake of shouting, it's about having a reason for shouting. And
having something to shout about.
Having something to shout about, because if you're just screaming, people are going to, just back away slowly, and I think that's a thing which you need to consider.
Yeah.
And you hear someone protesting, you're going to listen to what they're saying. You hear someone shouting loudly in the street, you're going to just move to the other side of the street. And that's just the way the world works, I think. And a lot of the internet these days is just noise. A lot of movies are just noise. Like, I'm not saying there are always a few gems in that, of course, but it's about getting them out of it all. And I think, because I've noticed that after... Because let's be honest here, Exerbia was like one of the original YouTube philosophy channels, and after he was there, more have started to spring up and make content. Both our channels, I'd say, are inspired by Exerbia to an extent, and I think he made it a viable thing.
He's the godfather of it. He kind of mainstreamed it, to be honest.
He is, because it's before it. Like, YouTube is very much just a platform for, if you're bored, you can go and you can watch a video about something. Maybe someone does something, like react to something, I don't know, and it's just there. And I think content just content that really makes you think is really important on just the internet. There's a lack of it. And stuff like this is very much the new way, I think, that people are going to learn information. It's through hearing how other people view it, because again, tons of people just shout on YouTube, and that's the thing, but then you just get a couple channels or a couple videos which can just give you a new perspective, and I think that's really the best that you can hope for.
without sounding too pretentious, I think that is kind of our goal as this philosophy channel. Like, even when we first started, seeing like a video with like a few hundred views blew my mind, because it was like, wow, people are actually listening to me. I find that really weird.
It is. It's very weird. Just knowing that people are actually hearing you is definitely something which takes a while to get used to. Just the whole act of being able to, the fact that you can actually provide something for another person to think about. Like, sure, it might not be the best. Sure, it could just be you've made a video because you thought about it. But the fact of the matter is, just making videos and realising that people are listening and that people are getting things from it, I think is just brilliant.
It is so cool.
It's just the fact that there's clearly an audience for this stuff, and I feel like a lot of people have been just... it's not given to enough people, really, or there's just not enough content out there.
Well, people are looking for a way to question their world in a way that's sort of accessible, in a way that they can relate to.
And I think this is definitely a platform, or at least a format, in which people of the future will definitely... I feel like they'll get something out of this. This is more the new way of doing it, because people don't meet up as much in person anymore.
Especially with a lockdown, people have more time to look on YouTube, so that gives us an opportunity to thrive.
Captive audience.
Yeah.
It's an awful way of thinking about it, but yeah, it is very much... It's good to allow people to think about stuff in a time like this, when the world is just so all over the place. Everything's gone weird in 2020. I feel like this keeps happening. Like, you have 2016, everything went downhill, and everyone was like, 2017 will be better. And it just, from there, every year got progressively
it's like
worse.
The World
It
Cup,
did, didn't it?
But disasters. Like,
Yeah.
2012, they said the world was going to end. 2016, nuts. 2020, the end.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I feel like 2012 might have been the real end of the world. And this has just been the slow progression. Just like... no, that's an awful way of thinking about it. But yeah, it's just...
Well, all we can do is push back and provide a little bit of positivity, and I like to think that's what we're doing with this podcast.
Yeah, it's all about, giving positivity to people, helping people through times like this and stuff. And of course, you've got tons of podcasts on like your channel as well, with your series In Conversation With, which it's just great. Because it provides a place where people can come, they can watch videos, and they can get a variety of viewpoints. And it just, in a time like this, it's really important, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll have to come on In Conversation With as well.
That would be
lovely to have
absolutely
you
brilliant.
on.
Yeah, we'd love that.
Thank you so much.
I love your series In Conversation With, because the people you've picked, not just Exerbia, but the people you've picked, like Philosophy on Ice, I actually hadn't heard of him before, but then I've watched his videos and he's really good. And Sisyphus 55, it's quite interesting. I think you've got some really good people on that, and I like it how there is a mix. I mean, Exerbia has like way over 1 million subscribers now, and then Philosophy on Ice,
Oh yeah,
he was in the hundreds when he came on your podcast. So I think it's definitely the podcast series 2020 needs.
Yeah, well, I like to have Exerbia because obviously he was a massive influence, and I really wanted to talk to him basically. But yeah, I mean, Philosophy on Ice, he's crossed over 1,000 subscribers now, which is pretty cool. But
Wow.
It's not like people with more subscribers have better opinions. Everyone has their own opinions, and it's nice to just chat with people that want to talk back. Yeah, it's just fun, really.
It's just brilliant being able to talk. It's just good to just express
It's
stuff,
good.
have people listen, talk to other people, get a varied amount of opinions. And that's just the whole point of the whole
Well, if
thing.
we can understand each other's views and empathise with each other, then that's all we can really do as humans. We can relate to each other, get in each other's shoes, understand each other's points and feelings. Then we've done it, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of what we've been trying to do, I think.
Right, okay,
We should
so
probably call it an end soon.
this has been it's been a genuinely great chat with you.
Yeah, it's great having you on.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, this has been really fun.
It's been great hearing different viewpoints, different opinions, and honestly, just thank you so much for coming onto this podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on the podcast.
It's been an honour to have you, good sir.
Oh, thank you very much.